Hi everybody, John Sire here, CKiW iRADIO 76, and you're at All 4 Gears. Hi folks, back John Sire. We are here with a living legend as we sit inside of his wonderful place. Al Bergler is here with us now. Al's friends tell us that Al is thinking about getting into drag racing, and he was hoping to get into maybe bracket. So if we had any kind of tips whatsoever for him. I mean, really, Al, how many years have you been in drag racing?
Well, it started out in probably the late 50s.
Late
58,
50s.
59, when Michigan Hot Rod opened up their first drag strip out here in New Baltimore.
You know, we're talking about that too. You have... you lived right over there by Motor City.
Motor City Speedway.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8-mile chainer.
And how long was that there for? Oh, that was there.
That was there when my dad moved there. I moved there when I was like 9 or 10 years old and never knew that racetrack was there, right? So one night we're here, right? Well, that Motor City Speedway was there, so then we used to hang out over there. So I'm really surprised I didn't go round-y-round racing instead of drag racing. But
wasn't that a dirt track?
Well, yeah.
Ish?
It was a quarter mile and half mile. When we moved there, the half mile was closed, so they just had the quarter mile. But I sold popcorn and peanuts to get in there, and I snuck in, and my mom used to write me a note to Andy Bardo, who owned the place. We live across the street, and it's really noisy. Would you let my son in? I'd give the note to Andy Bardo, and he'd let me come in. So.
Before we call the city on you, my son would like to sell popcorn.
That's right. That's right.
You know, that track was there for
a long time.
And then it became a dealership, I think. After
yeah, I don't know what's there now. It's a shopping center there or something.
There's absolutely nothing. I mean, there used to be Warren Cinema City and Arlen's and all that stuff. And then, because it was interesting how close, because 8 Mile was called Baseline at that time,
yes,
wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And if you were there, I mean, you must have saw some really wild stockers and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it was. Well, that's whatever happened to all the hot rods. You know, all the 39 Fords and 40 Fords and 32 Fords ended up crashing and banging at Motor City Speedway. You know? I'm surprised a lot of them survived, really.
It's interesting, too, because you've seen how fast they were going on drum brakes.
Oh, yeah.
If any.
Yeah, Roger Lindamood that's where he got his start, was Motor City Speedway.
Really?
And he went to, worked at Chrysler's, and he ended up going drag racing.
Yeah, but look at all those people that came out of that garage.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Lindamood, Tom Tiganelli,
Yeah.
You know, Hoover, all those guys.
Yep, absolutely.
But talking about all those guys, what is this behind us? Obviously, we know it's a fine automobile, but tell us about this.
33 Ford. Well, it's a 34 Ford with 33 grill, and it's done like a Bonneville-type race car, you know. It's got a 283 Corvette motor in it, just a hot rod, you know.
The inspiration was what?
I don't know, just like that. I like that style. You know.
I don't know. I mean,
I built that while the pandemic was going on.
Really?
Somebody bought that. There was a drag racing guy, Steve Best, had bought that car 30 years ago, and it was kicked around in half a dozen different garages, and I ended up finding it and bought it about 5 years ago now, and then finished the thing my way. You know?
Your way?
Yeah. So.
And your way was what way?
Just to make it look like an old Bonneville racer.
Wow. And who laid down the paint?
We did. A friend of mine's got a body shop over here, so it's just base coat satin paint. I didn't want nothing shiny. I wanted, just the number 302 on the door is my old funny car number. You know, it's got an Esky cam. It's got a 283 Corvette motor in it with an Esky cam in it. So,
you should almost go back to the very. You were close to Motor City Dragway. Or whatever it was called at the time, because...
I think it was called Motor City Dragway back then, when Michigan Hot Rod owned it.
Right, yeah. And I mean, the whole thing about that, wasn't it like a hot rod club that said, let's build a drag strip?
Well, it was 7 or 8 clubs. Michigan Hot Rod Association is 7 or 8 clubs combined to make Michigan Hot Rod Association. There's 7 clubs.
And so they all said, gee, there's some property here.
Yeah, and they all combined and built the thing.
Wow.
And owned it for a while. And then later on, Gil Cohn owned it, Still owns the property, I think.
Really? Because there's a lot of people that like send drones over the top and go, it's still there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. The chances of them, Al, getting a drag strip there?
Somebody tried in the city or township, voted them out big time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how many times did you race there?
Oh, tons.
Really?
Because that was opened before Detroit Dragway was.
That was?
Yeah, Detroit Dragway opened up in '59. That was opened up in the late '50s. Because I ran a 34 Ford Roadster there for a while and a 56 Chevy convertible there.
A convertible?
Yeah.
And how did you get that Chevy?
Well, it was streetcar, you know. But the Roadster actually was a streetcar, but we put a roll bar in it, and then we put a Hemi in it and ran there. That didn't last very long. Back then, things changed so fast, back in the late 50s, early 60s, drag racing-wise. I mean, if you had a car, by that winter, you'd be trying to do something better or something, you know, faster or cooler, you know.
How'd you find out about this? I mean, because there was a whole hotbed of stuff going on around the east side, you know, of Detroit.
Back in the 50s, just about everybody was a car guy compared to now. I mean, everybody was building hot rods or had a hot rod on the street, and then everybody wanted to start going drag racing on the street, and then start going to the tracks and stuff. It just multiplied.
And any street that you went racing on was a breath of fresh air. I mean, did you race on Gratiot?
Yeah, now and then. But you know, 8 Mile was the main thing.
8 Mile?
8 Mile was the main thing. Yeah.
Really? Detroit side or Warren side?
Yeah, Detroit side. that's when it was a divided road then, you know.
Yeah? And there was like what? Oh, that was what, 3 lanes wide at the time?
No, 2 lanes.
2 lanes.
And then it was divided with a medium in the middle.
And then what'd you do? Like hang out on Friday night and go, hey, folks?
There used to be a pool room there we all hung out in. Cavallero, and everybody knows Doc's pool room. We'd go in there and then talk about how fast your car was, and we'd go on 8 Mile Road and race.
Oh, really? Kind of like prove it? Let's see what you got?
Yeah. More so on 8 Mile Road than Woodward. Most of the guys raced on Woodward or Stevenson Highway, but 8 Mile Road was closer.
Stevenson Highway?
Yeah, that was originally drag strip. I never went there, but they used to race, used to block it off or something on Stevenson Highway out there. Or
really?
Either Stevenson or Northwestern, one of the highways out there on the west side.
And they would block it off?
Yeah.
Wow.
From what I remember.
Thank you, municipalities. I mean, how nice was that?
You know, the dementia's starting to set in here, so I can only remember a certain amount. It's very, very cloudy up there. So, you know, it's very cloudy. So I'll try to remember as much as I can here.
That's okay. You know, the funny thing is, if folks are telling us that Gratiot was the hot spot to race, because I don't know, how did the cops not find you? I mean, Gratiot.
Well, they did. You could still get tickets.
Did you ever get nailed?
Not racing, no. No, I never did. Never got a ticket racing.
Because you were fast enough to get away?
Probably because when I started doing it, the drag strips were opening up. So we used to go to up to Motor City or Detroit Dragway.
And not race on the road and endanger others.
Yeah,
Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
But I mean, how crowded was the pool room? I mean, when you had...
No, it was pretty big, good size. Good size.
Anybody playing pool?
Oh, yeah. That was the good old days. That was fun days.
And then what happened? Like one thing would lead to another and say, hey, look, I saw your car out there.
Back then, everything was starting to go so, or change so fast. Yeah. Every year, I mean, if you build a hot rod or a race car, by the next year it was obsolete. You'd have to, you're going to try to build something better or faster. It was the best time as far as I'm concerned. Everybody says that.
The best times
the late 50s and 40s, the drag racing cars were pretty crude. Yeah. I think. And then the late 50s, early 60s, they started to get a little more smoother and a little safer and, a little nicer. And so I think the 60s and 70s were probably the best years of drag racing, period.
The first time you saw a car from the factory that said, this looks like they got it right, for drag racing?
Well, I was never a door slammer guy.
Why?
I always had dragsters or competition coupes or funny cars. Well, the funny car thing didn't come until 1971, but I always had, first was a Crosley,
Yes, that's right. The mid-engine.
Yeah, first was a Crosley.
Well, I mean, I should say mid-engine, but the engine was back, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was behind the car.
Yeah.
It was behind the car.
And so what clicked on and said, this is going to be a great idea? Because nobody was doing that.
Yeah. No, well, somebody else had already did that.
But?
So I copied it. Well,
no, you perfected it. You didn't copy it.
Yeah.
You know?
Al Dartinzi, who ran Detroit Motor City Speedway, had a rear-engine Crosley with a Cadillac in it.
Yeah.
And then so I built one with a Chrysler in it.
And so
debuted it in 1959.
As a 59.
No, in 1959 at the Nationals.
So how did that work out for you, though? I mean, it was like, it was done by somebody else, but you had to take a look at it. And the reason why you went mid-engine was what?
Just for the
different?
look. Just for the look, yeah. Just for the look.
How did it go for you?
It didn't go good at all. It didn't go good at all. It didn't go good. There's a picture from 59 there in one of the magazines of the Crosley racing at Detroit Dragway. Detroit Dragway was brand new in 1959.
Yeah? Was it a handful? I mean...
Yeah, it didn't go very good. But it looked cool. It looked cool. But like I said, back then, everything was brand new. Everything was, Yeah. And then, just one car led to another car,
Did you ever, look at that and go... There was a cutoff point that says, either I'm going to go and try to really develop this mid-engine thing, or...
No. It just...
Tried it?
It didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. But back then, it was a cool idea,
Yeah. I mean, especially you think about weight, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, where'd you find a Crosby, though?
Well, in a junkyard.
Favorite junkyard?
A friend of mine that's got a Crosley station one. He said, "I'll give you that body if you want to, recreate that car." I said, "No, I don't want to do that." I mean, it was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Did you figure that out the first time you went down?
Oh, compared to the stuff nowadays, I mean, I think of that stuff and it's like, this is crazy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, think about when you were racing in the mid-60s or early 60s. Are you bias ply tires, drum brakes?
Oh, yeah.
Going how fast?
Oh, yeah. Probably, I don't know how fast the cars went. I don't know how fast the Crosley went, but the next car probably went in the 9s, 150, 160 or something.
Drum brakes.
Yeah, that was drum brakes, yeah. That was drum brakes.
And that didn't go, maybe this may be safe?
Yeah. No, it wasn't. So then, in the 1960, I got hooked up with Rangel at Gratiot Auto Supply. Mm-hmm. We bought a chassis research frame from California. Cost $75.
Wow.
Shipped, not together. I had to weld it together, right? And then there was a place on 8 Mile Road called Eton Corporation.
Yes. Yeah.
That tested motors, and you could buy motors. They'd use a motor to test a carburetor or distributor or whatever, then you could buy the motor. So that's where my first Hemi came from.
Really?
Then that went in that chassis research car.
Well.
And then I put a Bantam body on it, and Gratiot Auto Supply sponsored it.
I mean, how did you get... For those who don't know, Gratiot Auto Supply was like a speed shop that obviously started on Gratiot Avenue, and then it flourished. In the 60s and 70s, that was the sticker to have, man.
That was the speed shop.
Yeah, and it was kind of like a Kroger for speed. I mean, you don't have that now. You don't have that nowadays.
Well, you got Summit and Jigs and all them other ones now.
Yeah, but they're not local. I mean,
well, because you could go in a Gratiot Auto Supply and look at stuff on the wall and buy this, buy that.
Yeah.
And they were knowledgeable too about drag racing. Sure,
and then kind of the right of manhood back in the day, quote unquote, is that you would, as soon as you got your driver's license, it was like, what chrome air cleaner can we buy?
Before you got your license. I had a car before I had my license.
You did?
Oh, yeah, a 41 Ford convertible.
And your mom got you a note that said, please let him drive.
So on Gratiot, south of 8 Mile Road, there's used car lot, mm-hmm. right? So when I was 15 years old, a friend of mine got a job at one of the used car lots up there, just cleaning cars, wiping off cars. He said, well, the lot right next door is looking for a guy. I was 15 years old. Went up there and I got a job there, 50 cents an hour. I thought I died and went to heaven.
50 cents an hour?
50 cents an hour. I thought I died and went to heaven, working, cleaning cars, shining cars, and polishing them up and stuff like that. So what would happen was anytime a car came in, they'd buy cars that were traded in from a dealership. Any kind of a car came in that had anything that looked like some young kid had, like skirts or hubcaps or anything hot roddy look, right?
Yeah.
They'd take it off, and I got the stuff.
They took it
Yeah,
off?
they told you, well, they don't want the custom, the Joe Blow to buy a car that looked like some kid had a hot rod. So we took that stuff off, and I got to keep all that stuff.
Do you remember the name of the car lot?
Yeah, Charlevoix Motor Sales. It goes on and on and on from that deal. So that was great. So when I turned 16, I had 41 Ford convertible trade in. I bought that. That was my first car.
41 Ford convertible is your first car.
$75. And I had to borrow the money from my grandfather.
I was going to say at 50 cents an hour.
Yeah, I had to borrow money from my grandfather.
And how much you borrow?
$75. But I paid him back. I did pay him back.
I mean, how did you do the move to him?
So I worked there even through when I was 16 or 17, I think.
Yeah.
And then they used to buy all the trade-ins from dealerships. So that we'd all get in a car, 4 or 5 of us, many we can get in the car to go pick up cars that the guy that owned the lot would buy, right?
Yeah.
So we'd go out there and we'd all be in a car, and they'd like, all them cars in the back row, them 5 cars in the back row there, we're picking up, right? And I looked and, ooh, there's a Ford convertible there, there's a Chevy convertible there. So I'd be the first one out of the car to drive it back to the lot.
And how long did it take you to get back to the lot?
Yeah, no.
I mean,
No, that was a normal deal, but that was great. That was a great time.
I mean, you got to drive so many cars. I mean, did you kind of go, well, this is a clunker, this will never sell, this is great, this is fabulous?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever sit in a car and go, why did they build this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Was it a fine Chevrolet?
No. They had, I mean, if you could have had a place to buy all them cars and put them away, you'd be a millionaire today,
Yeah. You were talking about that you got the body out of a junkyard, and there was a lot of junkyards that were around there at that time. Was there anyone that stuck out to you?
There was Mound Wrecking on Mound Road course, and there was Warhoops on 18.5 Mile Road. We used to get a lot of stuff out of.
Yeah, and Warhoops, surprisingly for a junkyard, is legendary.
Oh yeah, well now it's USA. It's state of the art now.
Now it's Hollywood to the point where they can scan in and say if you need a fender, lot number 3, row 5.
In the early '60s, we used to buy 57, 58 Chryslers for the 392 motors, and then pull the motor out and junk the rest of it. Just to get the motor out of the block and heads and all crank and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, would you make out like a pilgrimage to say Warhoops like once a month, once a week?
No, not
whenever
really.
you had money?
Yeah, whenever you had money. Didn't have a lot of money back then. That's the problem. Even to build these cars, we didn't have a lot of money compared to,
Yeah, but now that you were saying that stuff about, every year technology got better and better and better.
Yep.
And everybody was trying to figure out something new. Was there something?
Everybody wanted to go faster, yeah.
Was there something that you saw that you went, oh, I got to have this thing as soon as you saw this? A piece, whether it be a supercharger or something that...
Well, one of the good things about Gratiot Auto Supply, there wasn't a lot of money involved in the sponsorship, but they were dealers for Cragers and all the big speed equipment companies. So being a dealer in the quantity they bought, you could get a clutch or a blower drive or tires or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could get, if you buy a lot, they'd get stuff for free, and that's where part of the sponsorship would be.
Well, that's helpful.
Parts. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, especially if you're Crager, geez, if you're running SS's?
Well, the first trip, we're getting a little bit ahead, but the first trip to California, I had a pickup truck and an enclosed trailer, and Angela said, when you get out there, go see this so-and-so guy, I can't remember the guy's name, at Crager. And they put Crager wheels all the way around the truck and the trailer. I thought,
look at you shine. Because SS's were like the hallmark of wheels.
Oh, yeah. That was the beginning of, look what's going on now,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially, if I don't know if we'd ever find somebody that would own something like Wheel City or something that would just sell tires and wheels.
Yeah. Jack McCormick. But now you can't buy a car without aluminum wheels, I don't think.
Would you go with the steel wheels with the dog dish when you were driving on the street, or would you show people, look at this?
No, I never had any trick wheels on later on when, like back in the drag racing days, but back or before that, we never had no trick wheels or anything. Stock wheels, stock tires.
You didn't want to show people?
We didn't have anything. We didn't have money to buy that stuff.
Well, 50 cents an hour, man.
Well, no, it got better than that.
I mean, do you remember buying your first slicks?
Oh, yeah. The funny part is, when I had the shop on Groesbeck in the 70s, I had 4 people working for me doing tin work. They only paid them $2 an hour in the early 70s. And you look at that now, it's like, wow, they wouldn't get out of bed for $2 an hour.
$2 an hour, which means you can make a hair-raising $16 a day. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For doing what?
For doing tin work.
You know, we should probably talk about that garage, you know. I mean, because there's some legendary stuff that came out of there.
Oh, my God. And the first, in the was the early 60s, I worked in a body shop for 6 years, and Angelo was starting to build street rods and tube axles and all that kind of stuff, so he wanted me to go into business, start making them parts like Pete and Jake's or whatever, but, you know. So then I was getting hooked up with Logghe's, a chassis research car. Logghe's built the front axle for it. So I was starting to become friends with them. Well, I was out visiting Ron and Gene, and we were going to Proto Products to pick up a dragster that just had a back body build on it. Mm-hmm. And Ron said, "You can do this. I'd rather give you the money than them." So that's how that started in the early 60s.
Really? And then they said, "Okay, Al, here's your shop. Hire folks. Go crazy."
Yeah. Well, the more aggravation car, I was still working in a body shop. This was a little bit. You have to go back a little bit here.
We can go anywhere you want to go.
More aggravation car. I wanted to put a nose on it. Okay. So there was a guy down that worked in the Packard Proving Grounds. I can't remember, not the Packard Proving Grounds, the Packard plant down there on Grand River. I can't remember his name, but he did aluminum work. So we hauled the car down there. How much to build a nose piece for it, right? $300. Well, I was making $100 a week. That didn't get it. So I figured if I worked in a body shop, I should be able to do it. Well, I did it. And that's probably the beginning of the end, the beginning of the chaos or whatever.
You know, but the one thing, you're so known for so many things, Al. You know, and obviously tin comes right up when you say Albert. Okay, so that's how fun began. But how did that become? Because not a lot of people do that.
No, there was Tom Hanna in California, myself, and there was 2 or 3 other guys that did it.
So what brought you to that?
Well, the Logghe thing, just because they were just starting to build them cars, and then like I said, I opened up a shop in East Detroit behind a music store. There was like 4-car garage back there building
behind a music store.
Oh yeah, it was up an alley down behind a music store. So that's where the first Logghe flip top, you know, Comet bodies or whatever. I did the tin in one of those. The first ones there. The canopy car with the canopy on the roadster, more aggravation. I built that car there. So then Cavalier, who owned Diamond Engines, knew a lot of guys in California that were coming. All the guys from California were coming back here now, Ivo and Roland and all that, and they wanted some places to work on their cars. So Cavalier calls me up and he says, "Tommy Ivo's here. He's looking for some place to work on his car." I'm like, "Tommy Ivo."
The TV yeah. Tommy Ivo.
So come on over. So I let him work in my garage. Pulled his truck and trailer in the back. There wasn't a lot of room. Tommy stays up all night, sleeps all day. That's part of his persona or whatever.
Okay.
So I said, "I'm going home at 5 o'clock. You're welcome. Here's the shop. The lights are on. Do whatever you want to do, right?" So I go home. I come back the next morning, and the landlady lived upstairs. She says, "Come on over here." She says,
"See where we're going here."
I want to talk to you. She says, "Your friend was up all night. The radio was blasting. Emptied this whole trailer out, cleaning everything." She says, "You're going to have to move."
Really?
So that shop was $100 a month, which was a bargain, right?
Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I bring that up to him all the time. He's like, "Ah." So then I found the shop on Groesbeck, which was 3,000 square foot. And I thought, "Oh my God, how am I ever going to make this deal?"
It's like a Sears.
$285 a month. It's like, whew. And I was just starting to do the Logghe's aluminum work and some stuff for Angelo and a little paint work and stuff.
Yeah.
So we moved out there. So then Pete Seaton, who owned Seaton Shaker, they were looking for a place to keep their car. They said, "How about renting us out a corner of the shop?" Okay, we'll do that.
Think.
Yeah, there we go. And Terry Hedrick we rented out the corner of the shop for Pete Seaton. So I think he gave me $100 a month. So that brought it down to $185. That was doable then, right? But then Logghe's were going nuts back in the late 60s, early 70s.
There wasn't. For those who don't know, there wasn't a chassis for a flopper that didn't have a Logghe chassis. I don't know anybody else, Al, that
well,
had.
There was guys in California, and there was a couple other guys, but Logghe were they did get credit at the end here, but they never got credit for what they did.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't think they did. I mean, well, they won the all-star drag racing and chassis builders and stuff like that a couple times. But
Yeah, but look at all the people that they built for.
they built their own helicopters. That's how talented they were. Ron and Gene, they built their own helicopters from scratch.
Well, it's not like building a mid-engine Crossley or something, but
but we got along really great, and they used to stay there late every Tuesday and every Thursday night. And so I still worked in the body shop before. We're going back again. Worked in the body shop. We'd go there Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I could make a bracket to go on a on a dragster frame or whatever, and then they'd weld it on. They let me do all that there, so they treated me really good with my cars that I built there and stuff.
I mean, were you married at this time?
Oh yeah.
And you were going through all these places. I mean, how much sleep did you get at night?
Well, when I had the shop on Groesbeck, we'd get there 8 o'clock in the morning and work till 5 or 6, go home and eat, and go back till 11 every night. Every night, man, I'm telling you. There was so many cars being built at Logghe's. And like I said, I had 4 guys help me do tin work there.
Yeah.
But it was the best. It was the best.
Look at all the names that came through there.
I wish I had a wall where we could have had everybody sign in. Everybody, can't think of anybody that wasn't in that shop at one time. I'm talking about everybody. Any professional drag racers were there. Because I let them work out of the shop. It was an industrial complex, and there was a lot of room behind the building for trucks and trailers. So, Whipple and McCullough, Perdome, Roland, Ivo, anybody, that was their home base here. So one day the guy across the street's got a big machine shop over there. I seen him talking. Boy, you're really busy over there. I says, let me tell you something. I ain't making a dime on this deal. they're just giving them the space to work on their cars.
Wow, but still, I mean, these were the name in the golden age of drag racing. As much as people like to fool around with the golden ages, actually, Al, we should ask you, golden age drag racing is when?
70s.
70s. All right, not the 60s, not the 80s, 70s, 79?
Maybe the late 60s, maybe. Because I still think front engine dragsters are a work of art compared to the rear engine stuff. I can't get excited about. I know the rear engine cars are what should be, but should be. The front engine cars, I mean, they had their own personality.
Ever drive one?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Did you really?
Absolutely.
The first time you sat in one, you kind of go.
Well, that goes a whole nother story here.
Here we go.
So I quit in '83 because that was when the economy went south.
Yeah.
We used to support our drag racing career on match racing. Okay. So in '83, it wasn't happening anymore. I think I raced 5 or 6 times. The brand new Pontiac I built, and it just wasn't happening. So I quit. That was the hardest thing I ever did. The car went to Sweden.
Yeah, that's what we heard. And you watched them all go away.
Yeah,
and it was
I drove out of here, and I sat here, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't. So back to working on street rods and stuff, which that's how it all started right here. That was the drag race. Street rods was before the drag racing cars.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was doing that. Then a friend of mine, Ed Golden, calls me one day. So I bought a top fuel car called the Probe. You built the body on this car in 1960. I want you to build a nose piece for it. And I'm like, well, I don't really have time now. I'm really busy, blah, 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 right? Make a long story short, he talked me into it. So I built the nose piece for it. Thought, well, this is kind of fun. I haven't done this in a long time, 30 years maybe, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of cool. Never tried to sit in the car or anything. So he's over at R&M on the west side of the state who restored the car. This is before I got into doing any of that. He says, they're going to have a hot rod reunion in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He says, I want you to do a push start in it. A push start in it? I don't even know if I can fit in it. So I go over to R&M. They got it out in the parking lot. I can't get in this thing. I don't bend that way anymore.
Yeah.
So we take the cowl off it, I can get in it. So we start up, I kind of pucker around the parking lot with it a little bit. I said, wow, this is really cool. So he said, I'll meet you in Bowling Green, Kentucky. This is the first MHRA hot rod reunion in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So we go down there. Mike Cool's there, right? The Probe, he was running on alcohol.
Yeah.
I told Mike, we got to put some
nitro in it?
Nitro. Mike Cool said, well, I'll put about 30% in it, blah, blah, blah.
30% nitro?
I drove that car over there down to Bowling Green to go to that deal. So we do a push start, put all the helmet, fire suit, and everything on there, pull around Steve. He goes, oh, go ahead, push it down and start it up. And I go through the routine of starting it. I pull around the corner. I thought, wow.
Boom, 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 boom.
I called Nancy and I'm telling her on the phone I'm babbling. She says, call me back when you get your shit together. I mean, I was in awe, man. That's all that all started. That's all that all started.
And then we kind of go, maybe?
And then I said, if we're going to do that, then we need to find more aggravation and restore that. That was the first Riddler car.
How did you find that?
We found parts of it. We never found the car. We found parts.
I mean, did you feel like, oh, look, we found the body. Oh, look, we found little pieces.
Well, we found the body after we found another, put a new body on it.
We should probably go back, for those who don't know about it. More aggravation was the very first, and this is a story that's told forever when you're associated with yourself.
So back then at Coble Hall, anytime we built any kind of car, hot rod, drag car, or whatever, Coble Hall was in January at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So we'd debut it there. We'd bust butt to get the thing done for Coble Hall, whatever. And I always built cars to be the nicest I could, right? So it won its class, it won best competition car. And Lee Lasky, who was one of the Michigan hot rod guys, said, stick around, we got another award. Well, we're going to give you the Don Riddler Award. Well, what's the Don Riddler Award? Well, Don Riddler was a promoter, which is a story everybody's heard. And he promoted football games, baseball games, and Michigan Hot Rod needed a promoter to promote Autorama. He's the one that brought all the bands in and all the wrestlers and all that to make it a big deal, right?
Wrestlers?
So that was the first Riddler winner, and look what it turned into. Now guys build $1 million cars to win 10 grand to be a Riddler winner. There
is a picture of you, a famous picture, where the woman is giving you the trophy.
Yeah.
And you kind of look...
There's one over there of it, yeah.
Yeah, casually. Yeah. There's the first one over there.
Just a picture, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're looking at that like, okay. I mean, when she was actually taking a look at that, were you like, did you know exactly what that was all about?
No.
It was just like, thanks for this, I appreciate it, next?
Yeah. It didn't, well, at that time it was like just no big deal.
It didn't impress you whatsoever?
Not whatsoever.
None? Really?
Because you didn't know what it was going to be.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't know what it was going to be.
And the one famous quote that you have is like, well, it's, everybody always remembers the first.
Yeah.
I mean, really, who won the second Riddler?
Yeah.
Nobody.
No.
Or somebody, obviously, but not you. I mean,
I couldn't tell you who won the second.
Would you have put another one there, though? I mean, would you say, look, I got the first award, I should probably do another one, see if I can top myself? Or
I was runner-up a couple other times after that.
Runner-up?
Well...
Who beat you?
That's before they had the grade 8 thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but still.
But I never built a car to win the Riddler Award. There's guys that build cars just to win the Riddler Award.
Yeah.
I built a car that I liked the nicest I could and put it in Coble Hall. Whatever it did,
Does that go back to the whole thing about your rear engine dragster kind of, I mean, what makes you kind of sour on those as opposed to the front engine? It's just like the funny cars. Like the funny cars now. The funny cars don't look like cars anymore. Yeah, for somebody who actually had one that actually looked like a Vega.
That's why this nostalgia thing is so great now. I mean, the cars look like a Plymouth or a Corvette or a Mustang, But now they're all cookie cutter cars. They all look the same. If they didn't put the badging on them, you wouldn't know one from the other.
Preach, brother. Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that we say at CK. They're all one big blob. They're almost like a NASCAR-y kind of thing. The thing about having, like Schumacher, and you could tell the folks who had, like Ivo, he had the Hot Wheel cars. You knew that was a Barracuda or as close as it could be. And now I understand the aerodynamics of everything, and that's kind of cool and stuff.
But Bernstein's the one that started all that.
Why
and they let him get away with it, and it just cannonballed. It's the same roof on every car.
Aww.
It's the same.
But I mean, when you were racing, I mean, because you stepped up 1-2 drag racing, because you went from what class to drag racing?
Well, went from AA comp to top gas to funny car.
Wow. We should probably, just to button that all up, if you had a chance, would you build a top fuel? I mean, a front engine car?
I have one.
I mean, a rail? Where's it at? Oh, that's right. It's over at
Bob's Drag Chutes. It's at Bob Fox's. Yeah.
That's right. But I mean, we should probably go back and say, besides a cackle fest,
would I drive one now?
Yeah.
No.
You wouldn't?
No.
One time?
No.
Money on the line?
No. Well, they're just, the front engine stuff is dangerous. That's why they went that's why they went to the rear engine stuff. I mean,
yeah.
But several guys tried the rear engine thing and it didn't work until somebody got it straightened out, you know.
Yeah, but look at you though. I mean, you sitting in the funny car, you don't have anywhere else to go.
I know. But that's another thing.
And yet you were afraid of front engine funny car or front engine
No,
rails?
it wasn't, you know.
Not afraid, but
Back then, you were fearless. You never thought about that stuff, really.
Ever get one go a little squirrely?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you have enough time to think about it, or was it just so?
Not really. Nowadays, them cars move so quick nowadays, they don't have, they can't react to if it goes crooked or whatever, they need to react almost before it happens.
Yeah, but when you got into the first one, because you didn't, I mean, did you have an onboard at that time?
Onboard what?
Onboard fire extinguishers and all that stuff? Because I'm trying to think, the first year you got into funny car was
71 with Prock. And that happened. I mean, I love the dragsters and the competition coupes and stuff.
Right.
Well, everybody like I said, everybody hung out by my shop and everything. Promoters would call. Is there anybody there that's got four wheels that'll start their car? I'll pay them $1,000 to come up here and make 2 runs. Well, a dragster, you couldn't get $30 to go match race or anything unless you were Ivo or Polo or something like that. So any funny car with any kind of history or anything, you could get bookings. So that's how Prock and I and Pete Eton got into the thing. There was 3 of us to start with, the first car.
Really? Because I know that Pete went to the Corvair.
Yeah, but this was after that, after Terry Hedrick went on his own and stuff. So 1972, the 3 of us built that funny car, the first Vega. It was the first Logghe narrow frame, dragster type frame. Because the first funny cars had a wider frame, and I can't remember what stage they were, but they're wider frames. That's the first car that was built narrower. It was more like a dragster frame. So we took that to 1972 to the Lions drag strip, Prock, Eton, and myself. And it was cold and damp, and it was the last drag race in 1972 at Lions. And Pete was in the front seat of the truck with a blanket. Well, he was money guy. He was the wallet.
Pete Eton was.
He was the wallet, yeah.
Okay.
But he had a lot of drag racing cars and good ones too.
Yeah.
And he said, "You guys buy me out. I want to go home." So he got in the cab and left. So
Really?
Then, yeah. So then we took that car, which was a Bergler Prock. Pete Eton, I mean, we took it over to Kirby's and sanded it down. That became the Bergler Prock car.
Wow.
And then we raced that car for a year or 2, and then Prock went to Custom Auto Body in Utica, New York. And then I hired Butch Moss that worked at Keith Black's and drove for Mickey Thompson and company. He drove the car for a year. And then he got homesick and wanted to go home, so then I got back in the seat then.
And then when you went back in the seat, I mean, when you had to tell the family, "Hey folks, Dad's driving again."
No, nobody cared. Nobody cared. But that was, I enjoyed driving that car, I really did.
All right.
Except when it was on fire, that was no fun.
Yeah, I mean, when that thing's flaming and you're sitting in there, and at that time they didn't have the top hatch.
No, there was no escape hatch on that car. I had to come out through the window.
So time goes normally by slowly when bad things are happening. I mean, we shan't say this, but what was going through your head when it was like, well, this is unusual, there's flames and I should probably be leaving?
That was really stupid. That's what's going through your head. Well, that could have, the one at Gainesville would have burned to the ground and won best appearing car. That couldn't have been avoided. But, I mean, you're in a semifinal round, everything's running good, everything's looking good, and you start it up, you don't have no oil pressure, you need to shut it off.
Gee, why?
Well, then you stage and you think, well, as long as I don't see them, I'll keep my foot in it. Then it becomes an inferno. That was the worst one I ever had. Yeah.
Did that, afterward, when you walked away, you kind of went?
I quit then for a couple hours.
For a couple of hours?
Yeah, I quit. Well, Prock had a bigger one than that. Prock, we were at a Quasco with the Bergler Prock car, and we burned it to the ground there, too. But back then, funny car fires was a pretty common thing. Pretty common thing.
And so were blower explosions.
Well, more burning pistons and putting oil out in the headers and catching on fire.
I mean, did you think about that every time you went down?
Yeah, absolutely. You better.
But then again, once you're staging, you're going, okay, what can we do about this? Because
I mean, you're all geeked up until the motor starts. Once the motor starts, everything seems to go. All that stuff goes away.
wow. Because
But before it starts, you know, when you're sitting there waiting for your turn and all that, all kinds of shit goes through your head.
like what?
Just I don't know, just thinking about stuff, right? But once it starts, that all goes away.
Because we were talking to Brian Wolf and to Jim Tiganelli, and we're fascinated because you guys have a whole different perspective of what fans see. And they say to the man, once you stage, once you go through the burnout box, everything blacks out. You listen to the engine.
Yeah.
You don't see fans. You don't see this side. You watch the drop.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, is there a ritual?
You're in your own zone.
I mean, are you listening? Are you watching? I mean, what are you doing? Are you watching, obviously, gauges? You want to make sure that oil is up there.
Yeah. No, yeah, well, sometimes. But, you know, I don't know. It's, you just go into your own sequence, you know.
And then, I mean, did you have a pre-stage ritual? Put one glove on at the same time?
No.
Just hop in and let's go, let's do it?
But you really were tight butt until the thing started. Once it started, you were okay.
Were you listening? I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
Could you hear
But there's guys that'll tell you, I mean, it had 5 pounds of oil pressure and the lights less than, you know, stuff like that. But they'll tell you a half an hour story about a 6-second run, you know. Well, really. Now it's all done on computer. Now it's all done with a computer, so they read the computer, tells you what to do. But back then, everybody read the spark plugs. You take the spark plug, look at it, see if it was rich or lean, and then you tune the motor that way.
Best tuner you had that you ever saw?
Best one?
Best one.
Probably Roland.
Really? Because?
Just, he did stuff and didn't blow stuff up, you know. And when he'd come back and stay at the shop on Grossbeck there,
yeah,
we changed my whole thing to his setup.
Really?
Yeah. This nozzle, that nozzle, this much blower, this much mag, this much fuel.
And that almost goes back to what you were saying before, how in the pool hall days, every year that graduated, there was some new kind of technology coming out to make your car go faster and stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially from the Chrysler side, from the wedge engines to the Hemi engines to the Sweet Hemi engines to whatever. And you see the evolution of the big three from, say, 64 to 71.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't start running fuel until 1971 with the funny car with Prock. Before that was gas.
Now, the whole thing about getting into the funny car was, it's like...
financially.
Yeah, I mean...
Because there was a promoter back east, Frank Lesueur, and there was one in Chicago, Ed Roshansky, that was booking agents.
Right.
So if you signed up with them, they got 6% or 7% compared to who you were, right? So they'd have a whole list of funny cars. Track promoter would call up and say, I want to put a show on July 10th. Who's available? Well, this guy, that. And then you'd get a contract and you'd go there and you'd get paid to make 2 runs usually. The 2 low ETs would come back for a winner and runner-up, and they would get paid for 3 runs.
Really?
And with Prock and I think we raced 40 or 50 times that first year.
50 times? I mean, that's a lot of travel, son.
But that's the early 70s when that funny car thing was going.
Yeah.
Gil Cohn used to have a 3-day race twice a year here in Detroit. He owned a track in New York. He had a 3-day race twice a year in New York. Bob Moretz, the guy in Wisconsin, had a 3-day race twice a year. I mean, you could race, and then there used to be a Friday night thing at US 30. I mean, you could race like...
Well, there was the Coca-Cola Cavalcade.
I was on that deal, too.
For those who don't know, Coca-Cola went heavy duty. There
was 6 or 8 cars that were in that deal there. Well, we were at US 30 and somebody had dropped out. So Roger Lindamood was the captain of that deal. Mm-hmm. And Ira Litchie was the promoter of that deal. So he asked if I wanted to join it. Heck yeah, I'll join it. Well, they ran this all. They ran us some tracks, but you wouldn't run down it, right?
No.
8th-mile tracks and all over the world, but Coca-Cola paid half of it, and the track paid the other half. So you'd get a check from the track, and you get a check from Coca-Cola.
See, that's the thing is that Brandy Lindamood wears a fine CK shirt, you know, and he lived only a half mile away from us, you know. So there's Roger's house, you know,
on 13 Mile Road.
Yeah, on 13 Mile Road, right next to, I mean, right at the red light, right across from Helmich.
Yeah.
You know, and so we see Randy once in a while with his big truck. He's got some transporter now, but he still has one of the Color Me Gones inside of the side of his side when they were running the Pro Stock. But Roger was saying, I mean, their lifestyle was like, you get out of school on Friday, you loaded up the truck, you did your homework on the dash coming home on Sunday and go. Yeah. I mean, how was it for you? Because, I mean, especially if you're going all around, because if you go on some places on Facebook or on YouTube, you can still hear the Sunday things like we do at CK, you know, and you can hear where they promote your car, you know, and stuff like that. But they were like talking about all kinds of different vehicles and all the match races that you were involved in, you know?
It was all over the world, man.
I mean, did you have to have a private secretary that said to keep you straight?
No. And see, back then, we had myself, we had a full-time guy working on the car, and then we had whoever wanted to go.
Whoever wanted to
go with us, right?
How many guys did you have with you?
2 usually.
2. You as driver and
a full-time mechanic or worker on the car, and then whoever wanted to go.
Then who drove the rig?
All 3 of us.
Would you go from like here to California back, or did you just do the Midwest?
Oh yeah, no, we're everywhere. And the best part is, the promoters like iRADIO and them, they say, well, it's only that far on the map. they put you somewhere Saturday night and then somewhere else Sunday, and it's like that far. Well, when you go Saturday night, you better not break something because you're going to have to race Sunday, you know.
I mean, is that how the contracts were written? Because the business side of it was fascinating.
Yeah, I got a book, 2 books that. Well, first couple of years we kept track of where we were and how much we made and what we did, right?
Really?
Yeah. Dave Payne he's loving that book.
Wow. First check that you got as a winner?
Whether it smoked the tires or, you know, just...
Well, did you get, like, obviously there was a basics of payout.
Yeah.
You know, first, second, whatever.
Well, a lot of the tracks, also, if you went there and you didn't run good or you broke or something, then they'd try to cut your money. They'd say, well, you didn't make all your runs, so we're not going to pay you this much. We're going to only pay you that much.
And that's when the 38 came out?
No. But there was a lot of tracks around that understood that happens, and they would still pay you, you know.
Was there any one track that you said, well, I can't wait to go back to this place?
Well, there was a lot of good... Back then, there was a lot of tracks.
Name 3.
Saginaw.
Saginaw
was a great track.
Really?
Martin. Detroit.
Detroit in what year?
Detroit. In the 70s.
Yeah, because the Detroit Dragway, for those who don't know, it's an iconic dragway. It's south of Detroit. You know, it's closer to Southgate and all that down there. Simply at Dick's, you know.
So in the late 60s, when we had the competition cars, we'd go to Detroit Dragway Saturday night, and Gil Cohen would give you $30, $40 just to be there.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks.
So all the dragster guys used to bring their stuff there Saturday night and test and try to do this. So they'd make a top eliminator deal out of all them cars. Well, I was included in that deal. I think it was $100 or $150 to win top eliminator. Well, on Sunday we'd go to Milan. We'd do the same thing. They'd have a top eliminator, and it didn't matter if it was a competition coupe, as long as it was a dragster style car. They'd race for a top eliminator, and I think that was $200 maybe at Milan, or $150.
Now we're making money. Now we're getting into the green.
Yeah, but that's back when gas was 30 cents a gallon or 40 cents a gallon.
I was going to say, when you took out the car, you know, and say you went to like 66, like Joliet or something. I mean, not right around the corner, but not too far. I mean, how much did it cost you to run a weekend?
Cheap. We used to go to Gary, Indiana, on a Wednesday night, get paid for one run. We get $400 to make one run. This was with the funny car. Leave the shop at noon, go there, get there about 4:30, make our one run, and come back home, and if you didn't blow anything up, $400 you'd make money.
Wow.
But that fuel was $300 a drum, you know, not $1,300 a drum.
Yeah, but also you still had, you know, unless you guys slept in the trucks a lot, you know, you got hotel rooms, got food, you got crew stuff.
We didn't sleep in many hotel rooms. There's a lot of sleeping in trucks.
Jim Tiganelli tells a story of how at one time they had like 10 or 11 guys in a hotel room, all sleeping, you know, and he said that was like luxury. Normally we slept in the truck,
you
know, and it's like a hotel room, bathroom. All right, now we're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever have to do the things that they had to do and like go in parking lots of hotels and stuff and thrash motors?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Did you really?
Absolutely.
And
this is a nice story. We're at Indy one year, and this is before the funny car thing. I think this was a competition coupe thing. We're in a motel. That's when everybody took their stuff back to the motel. They didn't leave it at the track anymore. We're working on the dragster or something. I don't know what we were working on.
It was safer to take it to Holiday Inn than leave it at the track.
Oh yeah. We didn't leave nothing at the track at that time, you know. And that's a cool story. So these black guys drive up in a Cadillac, and they had these diamond rings, right? Oh wow, $30.
Oh really? That's it?
$30. I look at it. Oh, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So we go over, and it's a scratch the window in the motel. Wow, it must be real, right? So we buy the $30 diamond rings. So I'm wearing it next day at Indy, or big time. So Donnie McNeil used to be the pull-out guy at the dragster thing. You know, he'd say, "Okay, you two," you know, and I knew him quite well.
Yeah.
I walk up there, he's wearing the same ring. He says, "Two black guys." Yeah, that was right. So
Funny enough.
They had a whole box of them. They had a whole box of them, I guess.
And they scratched glass right in the hotel. And the hotel was happy to see you leave.
But I guess they had a whole box of them. They were selling for $30 a piece.
I mean, they were showing pictures of all these funny cars, like at a Holiday Inn parking lot.
Oh yeah.
Everybody was thrashing. Management never came out and said, "Boys, what are we doing?"
In California, right across the street from Disneyland, Marco Polo, I think was the name of it. Where everybody stayed.
Polo?
That's where everybody stayed. A hotel right across the street from Disneyland. Everybody.
Really?
Everybody, yep.
And that's where everybody pulled in their rigs and stuff. But everybody knew everybody.
Oh
back
yeah.
then.
Oh yeah. It was a different type of. It's the same people, but everybody helped everybody. There was no corporate stuff involved then. It was everybody doing their own thing. There was no corporate sponsors. There was no big money where they had to do this or had to do that. So it was more fun then than it is now, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, now you're right. I mean, it's you see, and kind of some of the downhearting things for like fans is when you see the driver flown in on Friday and flies out on Saturday, and you have between 4 and 6 for autographs, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's like a pay thing or something. Somebody comes up to your pit, Alan, says, "Hey, can we have a picture next to the Shaker?"
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even now?
Oh yeah.
Not $40 each?
No. But like I said, the 60s and 70s were the best years of drag racing. Probably part of the 80s, but.
Was it for the conglomerate with everybody that was coming around?
It was the fun days. It was the fun days. Everybody had a good time, and we traveled together, and a lot of us, you know, it was just the good times of drag racing, I think. Everybody, anybody you ask, going to tell you the same story, I think.
Anybody that you saw, because that's what we get too. It's like, and again, we go back to the Tiganelli brothers, but they always say, if you blew up, you know, we have some pistons, you know, catch us back later. You can borrow them. You can borrow them, take the next round or whatever. That somebody would go if they saw that you needed a helping hand, that they would come over. It's a strange thing in drag
think
racing.
from what I can see, they still do that. If some guy, you know, these guys are in the last round and they're thrashing to get their thing together to do the last round or whatever, everybody kind of gets involved, which is fine. But
is it weird, especially when you saw it from the 40s and 50s, and then the 70s when you saw sellout crowds? You know, huge.
Look at some of the old pictures. It just, the pictures from Detroit Dragway there. I mean, you couldn't get another person in the stands. Now look how thin it is, which is a shame.
Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know if it's there's too much TV exposure. I don't know. But there's too many races now compared to back. There was only like 3 national events back then, or 4 when I was racing. So now there's 24, 23 something.
Yeah, well, they're all national events.
Yeah.
You know, and so that it dilutes everything. I mean, because what used to be the summer nationals, you know, the winter nationals, the nationals.
Well, it's I think it's all sports right now. I mean, a family can't afford to go to a drag race or a football game or a baseball game or a NASCAR. You know, it's expensive.
You know, which goes all the way back to Motor City Speedway. How much was peanuts back in the day? Cheap. You know,
So back when I built that Crosley, I was still living at home. So we used to push it around the block, right, to try and start it. Because it never had a starter on it. Those cars were all push-start cars then, okay?
Yeah.
Well, finally the cops had enough of that, said you can't do that. So we used to take it across the Motor City Speedway parking lot and push it around the parking lot over there to start it.
Go over 8 Mile?
Yeah. Well,
Push it over.
Well, we trailer it over there. But.
And then push it. I mean, when you were working all these things at home, was the folks happy to see little Al back there going, it's loud?
No, we never, no. But yeah, that's another story. We lived on the corner and in Detroit, 2 blocks in from 8 Mile, 2 blocks from Shaner. Everybody hung out at my garage, just like here, right? I'd be out there working on my cars, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And you know how young guys, you're loud and talking and, blah, blah. My mom would have a fit. The neighbors, be quiet, shh, keep it quiet. So I tell the guys, hey, no, listen, right? When they'd leave, they'd peel rubber. Blah, blah. So my mom used to have a fit over that. So nothing's changed. Everybody still hangs out here. They're just older and they don't peel rubber when they leave here. But
why is that, Al? I mean, because we've heard about the legendary coffees, the gang of how many that you have of racers and folks that were doing that. And obviously back in the day and stuff like that, what brings them around Al's orbit all the time? I mean, what's the camaraderie? How do they do that?
I don't know. I don't know. If I didn't have this place, I don't know where I could hang out,
Yeah, but I mean, I would have thought you could have said, well, it's my wonderful personality, it's that magnetism that I have, that everybody...
Well, at that time, I was the only... Well, no, there was a couple other guys, but the drag racing guy was building drag racing cars, so most of the guys that hung out there were car guys, but they weren't drag racing guys, So they're interested in what was going on and what I was doing.
It's amazing because I know that you were talking about a little bit behind about the Logghe brothers, and the place that I think that was on 10 Mile? 13 Mile, that's right by the railroad track.
Yep.
And that was the new big huge long place because that wasn't their first shop, was it?
No, the other one was on Gratiot.
I was going to say behind a music store.
Yep. No one behind the music store. When I worked at Matt's Collision on Harper, Morris Logghe worked at Fruhoff Trailer down the street that built semi-trailers and stuff, trucks and trailers and stuff. So they needed somebody to have a stamping company that stamp hinges out or something, whatever. So they talked Morris Logghe to opening up getting the stamping press and making parts, and that's how that started. And Gene and Ron went to school to be engineers or whatever, so they were very smart. So the chassis research car that I built, they built the front axle, and they were still on Gratiot when I met them. And then when they moved over to Grospec, they started building more cars and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And
I mean, what was the whole thing, Al? I mean, there was people that could build chassis all over the place, people that could stamp all over the place, all over the America, So what did Logghe have? Were they the first to the whole? I mean, how?
They were very smart, and they were drag racing people. They were very smart about how to do things and how to build things and how to build them safe.
Smart.
Yep.
I mean, it's smart to how to do things.
So if they weren't business people, they were engineers. So then they hired Jay Howell to run the place. And Jay Howell was the guy that you talked to on the phone if you ordered a car or buying a car or whatever. Ron and Gene would be working in the back. But I mean, that was in the heyday. I mean, we were probably picking up one car a week to do the tin work and stuff,
And we should probably, again, when you were talking the tin work, that means?
Well, mounting the body and putting all the tin in the funny cars and stuff.
Right.
So then that's back in the heyday when everybody's blowing their stuff up and catching on fire, and they'd call.
Come on back.
They'd call Al and come, and we'd have to fix it and try to work on it. And
they ever bring something on a flatbed and you just went, no?
One time, I remember Roland went with Tom racing, and I stayed back at the shop and worked on his blown up car. We had a match, Prock and I had a match race somewhere, and Roland said, well, I'll go with Tom. You stay here and work on my car.
And
that's what we did, yeah. One time, Jungle Jim, same thing, burned his body off or whatever. Came back, and him and I worked on it 24 hours straight to get him back down the road.
Really? How was, because Jim Lieberman now had, I mean, with Jungle Pam and everybody, it's kind of this mystique. How was he as a human?
He was a nice guy.
Was he?
But he was Jungle Jim.
Watch Jungle how he gets those words.
Jungle Jim. No, he was probably a showman. He was a John Forrest back then.
The showman more than TV? than Tommy?
Yeah, pretty close to the same thing.
Because Tommy had the big thing about Tommy Ivo, he had that beautiful trailer. I can't believe that you got kicked out with that trailer.
I copied everything he did.
Really?
The red ramp truck with a picture up there on the wall with windows inside because he had windows on the side of his truck. And then one trailer I built had windows on the side, same thing. Yeah.
Wow, because that was such an iconic trailer.
Well, and then I kind of, those were like my heroes, right? So anything they did, I try to imitate or copy or whatever. But not copy, but, I just figured if they're doing it, we'll do it.
And you can do it a little bit better?
Well, no, I don't know about better, but.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did anybody ever say, look, that looks familiar?
Yeah. No, not really. And then the Ram Chargers had one with windows in it, and then Roger Lindamood, Roger, I don't think had windows in it. He might have had windows in the side of his.
I mean, it was really back in the day when names, and that was one of the things that we were talking about too, is that there was so many cars now, especially funny cars and things like that, don't have names. And we used to tell people, look, we can't promote you if you're a blue Fox body.
Yeah.
I mean, to have the Motown Shaker, to have the Eton Shaker, to have Rambunctious, to have everybody with names who our fans can identify with, gold.
Well, that's how that Motown Shaker came when Prock and I went into the deal originally there. Mm-hmm. He calls me at 3 o'clock in the morning. He says, I got it. I said, what? Because we're trying to come up with a catchy name,
3
right?
in the morning. And you answered the phone.
Motown Shaker, because the Eton Shaker thing was already, Terry Hedrick had already broke off with Pete Seton, and he went out on his own because Pete got out of it. So the Eton Shaker was taken, so he said the Motown Shaker. So then the Prock came up with the Detroit Tiger thing, same, Detroit Tiger thing.
Well, that was kind of nice being in Detroit, especially when the Tigers were hot.
I got a letter in the mail saying I couldn't use Motown.
Oh, we've heard about this from the folks who had the Motown missile.
Yep.
That Barry Gordy was like, we own that word, son. And just went...
Yeah, that's what we did too. That's what we did too.
Did you keep the letter though before you ripped it up?
No, I should have. I mean, we should have kept a lot of things. We didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the year we'd go through the glove box and throw all that stickers and last round stickers and stuff they used to put on windows and all.
Oh, the Eliminator stickers.
Throw all that stuff away at the end of the year.
Yeah, and right now you'd been an eBay millionaire.
That's the other thing we used to do. You get in the last round. Because they had contingency money, right? So you'd look at National Dragsters to see who's given contingency money. You go through the glove box and get the decal sticking on the car. Now they don't do that no more. Now they check you out beforehand. But it's like, okay, they're going to stick that on there, stick that one on there.
I mean, would they walk around Al in the pit and go, look, who's got an Isky cam? And it's like, we do.
Well, back in the early days, the oil companies would try to buy, if you had a Pennzoil or whatever, Kendall would want to say,
right.
How about using our product? We'll give you so much money and so much oil or whatever. But there was a lot of that going on. But
wow, because you would think, I mean, how much, it was good that the promoter gave you that much money.
Yeah.
But to get contingency money, I mean, would they give you just parts, cases of oil, or would they
actually give you money, yeah.
Really?
But there was a lot of them that never came through, too. But now...
Oh, really?
Now, I'm sure the money is in escrow or in bank or whatever ahead of time, but...
I mean, did they walk up to you before the race and go, hey, look, man, if you got a Kendall GT sticker, we'll give you $25?
Yeah. No, it was more than that. But,
well, I was trying to be cool about it.
Yeah. But it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot. But, back then, if you won Super Limited, I think you only got $1,500 or something like that, plus contingency money. And this is the 60s, This is early. This is early when there was no money around. When gas was 30 or 40 cents and bread and milk was cheap.
Yeah, but still, you still had to take that truck, and I'm thinking the rig probably didn't get 10 miles to the gallon. Yeah.
We had more. You could write a book on stuff that happens on the highway, on tow rigs. You really could. I mean, we had stuff. Well, that ramp truck that Prock and I built. Yeah. It had a small box Chevy in it. And then we extended it and closed it and all that. Well, we went to California. On the way back, west of St. Louis, blew the motor up on it. We went and rented a U-Haul truck and a tow bar and towed that truck from St. Louis to here with a tow bar. Well, talk about the tail wagging the dog. That was the tail wagging the dog. But there was so much.
So, I mean, because they heard that, I mean, things that would break off on the side, things that would happen at
axles
night.
and tires and...
Yeah, and then where do you change these things at? And you're in the hills of Kentucky and you're going, whoops.
So back then, like I said, I didn't have a lot, there wasn't a lot of money around. So Bob Farmer had a Dodge pickup truck, crew cab pickup, but that's before Dodge started making dualies.
Yeah.
So it's a good story. I wanted a dually. Well, you could buy the fenders because they made the fender, fiberglass fenders. So I got to the junkyard, got a dual rear end out of a Bell Telephone Company truck that, was a
Bell Telephone Company.
Well, it was a Dodge truck, rear end. Put it in that truck, put the fenders on it. This was when we were on the Coca-Cola Cavalcade of Stars. Went to Kansas, raced there. We left Kansas and we were in Wyoming somewhere. And a friend of mine's driving a truck, and I'm in the back seat sleeping. He says, "Truck won't go no more." What? Get out, the back end's all smoking. Make a long story short, the kid that worked for me, when he put the rear end together, he put the axle too tight, and it broke the rear end in it. So now we're in the middle of Wyoming. There's no junkyards and no nothing, right? So we tow it down to a truck stop. The old rear end that was in the trucks behind the shop on Groesbeck, I called Pancho. I said, take that rear end, take it to the airport and fly it to Salt Lake City. Okay. Fly it. We flew it out there, right? So then Crow and I rode with Roger Lindamood to Salt Lake City because we were on the Cola Cavalcade of Stars. We were on our way out west to do the Western swing thing.
Yeah.
So Crow and I go, we rent a car. The rear end wasn't coming in until 4 or 5 o'clock that night. So what are we going to do? We went and played golf. Took the rent-a-car, put the rear end in the rent-a-car, sticking out of the trunk of the rear end of the car we rented, drove all the way back to the truck stop, put that rear end in the truck, buttoned everything up.
At the truck stop.
At the truck stop. Dusty, dirty, it was terrible.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So now we're going down the road. So the first motel we find, in the middle of the night, we stop, take showers, get cleaned up. And we didn't even stay there. Just get cleaned up and kept going down the road. Left the rent-a-car there and called them, said it broke down or we did something, so it left it there. And then went out west with that thing. And we didn't have enough lug nuts, so we had to take lug nuts off each wheel to get at least 4 on it or 5 on each wheel and didn't get killed.
And hope to God. Yeah, but during that time where you're going, well, we just have to make it. You weren't even actually thinking about...
Now it's like, no way. It'd be like, now I get a flat tire, I panic. Yeah, to do something like that is just, I can't even imagine we did that.
I mean, of all those things, you just took a look, especially on the side of the road, especially like at night, because there wasn't like the greatest lighting of the 60s.
And the dust and dirt in that truck stop was just, it was unbelievable. We made it, and we made our races and did our thing. And
nobody knew any differently. Thank you, promoter.
That same red truck, we were in New York, going from Epping, New Hampshire up to Montreal, and we blew the motor out of that one, and we changed the motor in a gas station in the truck.
The gas station?
The guy towed us in, and he says, my friend's got a junkyard. Let me see what he's got. He calls up, and he says he's got a big block 396 motor with, not many miles on it. So we bought that, and Richie and I changed that motor in a gas station with the guy's wrecker. So then I called the track in Montreal because I heard it was raining there, right? And I said, "Can you send me my rain money? We're here now." He said, "You want your rain money? You got to show up here." So we didn't drive the rest of the way to get the rain money.
Rain money was
$250
out of
2,000 probably 1,500.
But you would have to drive all that way for $250.
Oh yeah. Well, we raced Dragway 42 one time and got rained out, and drove all the way to New Hampshire and got rained out. So that was a $500 weekend.
And how much did it cost you?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean
probably less.
Oh, did it? Okay, I was going to say, did you break even?
We did another one like that. US 30 got rained out. Went to New Orleans and got rained out. Same weekend.
Really? And then you kind of go,
why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it's a long drive.
Yeah. But back then, it didn't bother us.
But you were talking about how you could do that thing, how you could swap engines, you a pal, in whatever environment. How fast could you swap out a motor?
In the truck or the car?
Car.
The race car?
Yeah.
Oh, there's another one. We raced, this is 1982 or 83, I can't remember, but when we moved out here. It wasn't out here yet.
When you say out here, you meaning here?
Where I live here now.
Yeah.
We lived on Garfield. we raced the Popular Hot Rodding race at Martin, went to Rockford and raced on Sunday.
Okay.
We're going to move here the following Monday. We get home at 3 o'clock in the morning. We move. We're working. We got everybody moving, everybody out here, whatever. Frank Lesseur calls from back east and said, "Do you want to race the Mr. Chevrolet race at Capitol Raceway Saturday night?"
Ching.
This is Tuesday or Wednesday, right? So we still got the same motor in it that was in it for that whole last weekend, right? So Ronnie and I said, well, we'll switch. We got the other motor all freshened up. We'll put that motor in it, right? So we put that motor in it here. We go to Capitol. We started up and squirting all at the side of the block where it was repaired. So we take that motor, just Ronnie and me. That's my son. We take that motor out and put the other one back in and do the thing there. I couldn't do that now for $1 million. Just two of us did it before it was a match race thing, and we got it done and we ran the thing.
But it never occurred to you that maybe power tools would be nice?
We never had no impacts. And we should have probably started it up before we went there, but we never did that before. Now, everything we do here, we push outside and start up.
And your neighbors love you?
Oh, yeah. The new neighbors back here had a little party, and they said the guy in the back's got a helicopter. And they said,
a helicopter.
Yeah, she says, when you going to start your dragster? We want to hear it. I thought, oh, boy, I can't wait.
Which one would you like?
Yeah.
If you had, and that was one question that we were asked before to ask you. All your FCs that you ever had, your funny cars, the one that gave you the biggest headache was which one?
All of them. All of them. They all gave you problems. I mean, they were all working on them constantly,
Yeah, but was one a little bit easier? I mean, the Vega easier to drive than the Mustang, or?
No, they were all about the same. Yeah.
Now, the reason why you changed body styles was
something to look. If I seen body, I liked the look of it or whatever, I would change the body.
Yeah, and funny enough that none of those bodies were the most aerodynamic we've ever seen.
No, well, the original Shakers were Chevys. Shaker was always called a Chevrolet, so that was the Vegas.
Right.
And then I liked the Mustang body, so they did a Mustang, and then we did a Corvette, and then went back to a Pontiac. So there was probably 6 or 7 different cars.
And you went to the Corvette. I mean, that's a bigger body style than obviously the Vega at the time.
Yeah, it was. It was more streamlined.
Yeah, more aerodynamic. And I thought, well, that'd be a lot easier to race than the other.
Yeah,
but
they all ran about the same, really.
And you were white knuckled at the end, or were you eating a sandwich by the time you hit top end?
You weren't looking to watch the telephone poles go by, but no, they were all about the same. The Vega seems to have got more history or more. Well, MPC did a model of the Vega, and so did 1320, and a couple different did the Vega. But
how did that? When you saw that, like on a shelf at a store, there's your car, there's you, there's the box.
I know, it makes you feel pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
makes you feel pretty good. But they didn't, I think they gave you 3 cents or 5 cents a model or something. That's it, really.
Really? To use your name, your likeness, and everything else, your decals?
Well, MPC, who was the big one originally, right?
Yeah.
When we did the Corvette, I was still living on Garfield over, so they sent guys out 3 days or 4 days in a row to measure everything, take pictures, and they were going to do it again, right? Well, okay, no problem. They're going to do the Corvette.
Yeah.
Well, it never come out. Well, here it comes out, and it's called some weird shaker motors or something, but it doesn't.
So they didn't have to pay you the
No, exactly. But it had all the modifications I had on that Corvette body was on that thing. So I called them and I really raised hell with them about it, and they end up compensating me for it. So.
All right, because I was going to tell everybody to buy an AMT car, don't buy an MPC anymore.
Yeah, but they compensated for me, so.
I mean,
they made up for it.
But I mean, look at how many people like Coca-Cola and stuff that would knock on your door and go, "Hey, Al, hi, we're this big corporation. Can we see your car?"
Yeah, but that was before, like I said, there was no major sponsors. Very few. Maybe Budweiser, maybe, and a couple other ones, but there was nothing like now. Now you can't run with a car without a major sponsor.
Yeah, I mean, financially now, I mean, how many funny cars were back in your day? Like tons.
Oh. At Indy, before NHRA figured out this is what's bringing the people in, there used to be 30, 40 funny cars there. And there wasn't now they have a designated time to run them, okay? 1 o'clock's qualifying, whatever. Back then it was you get in line, and whenever they had a break, they'd let the funny cars or the dragsters run, So you'd make a run, and if it didn't come out real good, you'd get right back in line and service the car in line. Oh, yeah.
Service the car in line?
Change oil and tune it and do whatever you're going to do, so try to make another run.
Change oil in the push-up lines?
Well, yeah, and the line went all the way down out of the staging lanes, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, that would, I'm sure everybody loved you behind you that were just changing oil.
Well, yeah, but you drain it in a pan and everything, but everybody was doing the same thing. Got right back in line to try and make another run, but now they're lucky if they have a full field,
Yeah, because we're taking a look at back in the day pictures, and you saw like all of them with their bodies up, and the line went on forever. I mean, names that you'd never recognize, or local folks or something like that.
Well, there's several tracks used to have a 64-car funny car show, and they'd line them all up.
Yes, right, yeah.
They'd line them all up, and they had alcohol cars also, but they were still funny cars, and they'd want everybody to start up at the same time and make noise, so we just shake the body.
Woo.
Well, why we're going to spend, we're going to waste fuel sitting there doing that, so we just shake the body. Nobody knew whether it was running or wasn't running.
Al, in the few seconds that we have left, I mean, anybody that we should probably thank, that you want to give a little tip of the hat to?
I don't know. I mean, I never had any help from anybody, really.
Why, thank you, everybody.
I know, financially or, Gratiot Auto Supply helped. That was about it in the early days.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything was paid by match race money,
And that was, but you didn't have to go, I mean, it was basically the folks calling you as opposed to you calling around?
Yeah, we never had to call for match races. It was a promoter in Frank Lesueur and iRADIO were the two promoters. And they would call and tell you, do you have this date open? You can go there or you can go here.
Really?
But they keep you plenty busy.
Did they tell you all this in like February, or did they, as the weeks went along?
Gil Cohn used to start booking his stuff in February. We went to New York National. It was snowing. And there were so many people there. He said, I don't want nobody getting hurt. This was when Eton ran the track in New York National. I don't want nobody getting hurt. Just go out there, do a burnout, and do a half a track run, and we'll get paid. But there were so many people there, it was unbelievable.
In the snow?
It was snowing, yeah. We take the oil before we put it in the motor and in the truck and put it by the heater to try and warm it up.
And I'm thinking you're not running 10W30.
No. So to get back to the funny cars, so when we restored the more aggravation of these other cars we've done, Kyle Wilsall, I can't remember his last name, called and wanted to run the Motown Shaker. He had a Dale Pooley car, and he was going to do the nostalgia thing. And he wanted to letter it up like the Motown Shaker, and I agreed to do that because I found out he was a legit guy and he was okay. So we're at Bowling Green with the semi and all the dragsters and all that. He brought the car there. He said, I want you to make a squirt in it. Really? Okay. So I did a half tracker with it.
Really?
So that's what got the restoring the funny car thing started, right?
Yeah.
So I did that, and I knew where the Vega funny car was, so I had to go get that and restore that.
And now somebody else has your funny cars. I mean, do you know where your funny cars are?
Well, the Vega is in a guy's collection in Atlanta, Georgia, who has several cars. He's got a Motown Missile car. He's got one of Bruce Larson's cars. He's got a Jungle car, several different cars, and a bunch. He's a banker guy, whatever. He's super hot rodder guy. And then more aggravations in Speedway's museum.
Yeah.
I restored Jim Tuzak and myself did the Ram Charger car and Colin McGaughan. Those both cars are in Speedway's museum. And now Logghe's Dragsters in Speedway's museum.
Ever go back and visit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a must place to go to, I'm telling you.
Really? And where is this at for
Lincoln, Nebraska.
In the middle of
nowhere. When we were there, he says, anything you see here we do different? I said, yeah, move it closer to Michigan. But it's not a bad ride. It's 800 miles, but it's worth the trip. It's all race car oriented.
Why Nebraska?
Well, that's where Speedway came from. Bill Smith started Speedway Motors way back when Gratiot Auto Supply started Gratiot Auto Supply, so they were in cahoots together a little bit, right, back and forth. So he was a circle track guy. He couldn't get parts for his cars. He started building them.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. Now it's gigantic.
And now they have that museum that rightfully should be here.
Yeah. But I've been there half a dozen times. It's gorgeous. It's done right.
Amazing. And so,
three floors. I mean, it's big.
oh, we've seen pictures of it, and it's like, how did you get that car?
Yeah.
But I mean, and all of them look like they've all been restored.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're all beautiful because some of these things, you see some like one of the Mongoose cars, and it just like, you hate to see it in some guy's backyard, and it's all right.
Gardner's Museum in Florida is bumper to bumper, where this other one's kind of laid out where it's displayed nicer. I think.
Yeah, Garlett's is more like home
quantity.
Yeah. And, well, because look at how many you can get.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you want to put it in Don Garlett's museum? Take it to Florida, son.
Yeah.
Let's go. You know, so now where do you go? I mean, it's like, okay, so now that you've got to this point, I mean, you're like what, now 63, 64? And so now...
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now besides the coffee clutches, so now what do you do with your days?
Work on cars out here. I just did a body for Sean Dill here a year ago, and another guy, local guy that races a front engine dragster, I did a body for him. So I'm not looking for any major jobs, but I'll do a little bit of work here and there.
I mean, just whatever.
You got to do it, yeah.
I mean, isn't there any time where you just want to lock up and find a boat somewhere?
No.
Ever?
No.
Amazing. And see, and that's the reason why we have Al Bergler here on All Four Gears. Al, thanks an awful lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And
thank you for staying with the only station that gives a damn about the greatest sport on earth, and that's drag racing. Welcome to CKiW, Radio 76.